So this is Steve, and I'm here with Sam Locke. We're at the Grand Wayne Center here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Sam, you're running for State Auditor on the Democrat side. Tell me a little bit about your campaign.
Thanks, Steve, for asking us to take part in the video blog. My name is Sam Locke. I'm the Democratic candidate for State Auditor. We've been campaigning since about October on the message of restoring some innovation and transparency back to the State Auditor's office. We have a dual challenge of trying to reach out to voters and talk about those message points while at the same time educating folks on the role of the State Auditor and why that's important to them. Essentially, a good way to look at it is the State Auditor is responsible for spending your tax dollars. The auditor spends about $10 billion in taxes a year, both through the state's accounts payable system, payroll, and tax distributions to local cities and local governments. I think in this role we have an incredible opportunity to look for ways to be a watchdog for taxpayers to make sure their money is being spent wisely and appropriately, and at the same time look out for ways we can find ways of saving money for taxpayers in the process as well. It makes it a more activist office as opposed to sort of the caretaker role we believe it's faced in the last 3 decades.
Mm-hmm. What are some of your qualifications?
Great question. I am a lifelong Hoosier, except for a few years I spent away while serving in the military. My education's from Indiana University Bloomington. I was a personnel and manpower officer in the military and have some auditing experience in that realm. Since that time, I've worked in finance for the nonprofit industry as a consultant and operations manager for several national scale nonprofits. I'm currently working at fundraising operations for the national headquarters of the Presbyterian Church, and I like to make the parallel that the transparency that people expect from the nonprofit industry is really the transparency we should expect from our government as well. If somebody makes a donation to their favorite charity or their local church, they expect to see how that dollar is managed from start to finish. It is not enough to just give the money and say, I'm done with it. They want to know, was the pastor actually paid, or was the building built, or was this program I'm really interested in to actually carried out? And in a lot of ways, we should expect a higher level of transparency from the State Auditor's Office and the state's finances in general, because it's not a donation. We have to pay our taxes, and in so doing, we have the right to know how every dime is spent out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Talk a little bit, I was looking at your website, and I'll put the URL at the bottom of this, but talk a little bit about the online database that you want to get going with the Auditor's Office.
Absolutely. Our campaign is focused a lot on technology because we think that's something that's been lacking over the past several Republican administrations. One of those ideas is creating an online web presence where taxpayers can search for every single transaction that the auditor authorizes. Many states and local governments do this already. A great example is the city of Louisville. If you want to know how much money is spent on salt, for instance, you type in a couple of keywords, every vendor the city's paid for salt pops up with the amount, the contact information for the business. And it's a great tool for transparency so taxpayers know exactly how their money is being spent. But it's also a great tool for small businesses who may want to do business with the state government but need some help crafting the quote price to make sure that they're being competitive with other vendors who are currently fulfilling that duty. So I think it's a win-win. We want to do some more with technology too, and that's institute what's called an accounts payable recovery system. They do this a little bit already, but we want to make it significantly more robust. It's where we use a computer system to look for accidental duplication of payment, small dollar fraud, things that aren't big savings by themselves, but added up together. Some accounting firms think that we can save about $10 million a year, and that's also a zero cost for the taxpayers to implement something like that. So a lot of potential savings with very little upfront cost.
Mm-hmm. Can you think of some areas right now that perhaps we need to look at in the state government as far as spending goes? Spending too much, not enough?
I think there's a lot of ways that that we can root out some wasteful spending. A couple of great examples that I've seen recently. There was a report in the Indianapolis media market around Christmas time. WTHR, I believe, did it. They talked about a lot of $600 office chairs that we have in the state government, and somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million was spent last year on freebies, things like ink pens and stress balls with the state's logo on it. It seems like in a midst where we're laying off teachers and forcing communities to make a lot of tough decisions, that wasteful spending like that should be rooted out. Another great example is the millions of dollars that was wasted in the FSSA debacle, where the state privatized an important part of government services. It failed dramatically, and in so doing, we wasted several million dollars in the process. And at no point did the current auditor raise his hand and say, "Wait, we have to re-examine this contract. Are we truly getting what we paid for?" Now, in the interest of full transparency, the state auditor doesn't have the power by him or herself to stop the spending. The governor, in conjunction with the executive department and the General Assembly, determine how money is spent. But what the auditor does have the power to do in its role as the financial record keeper is call out state agencies that are wasting money. So while you can't necessarily stop it, we can draw the public attention to it and make sure that the public is holding its legislators and the governor and executive branch accountable for what they are choosing to invest our money on.
So are the state budgets set by the auditor, or are they set by the legislature?
A good way to look at it is the state treasurer collects and invests the money. The governor, in conjunction with the General Assembly, determines how to spend the money, and the state auditor ensures that the money is spent within those guidelines, and also keeps track of the state's finances, sort of the checkbook keeper for the state of Indiana. Both of those positions are meant to be checks on the executive and legislative offices to ensure that we're being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And what we really need is a more activist role to make sure that we're calling out the things that we're doing poorly and the things that we're doing well in state government in terms of spending money.
Here's the trivia question for the day, and maybe you can straighten this out for me. You know, at state level you have an auditor, county level you have an auditor, city level you have a city controller. Are they all three the same, basically?
Very similar roles. The county auditor and the state auditor share a lot of common duties. Obviously, the county auditor performs those functions on the county level and the state of the state. Both are in charge of accounts payable and payroll for counties, so very important in expending the tax revenue. One additional duty that the state auditor has is actually sending tax distributions to local governments. So they also work hand in hand with county treasurers to make sure that Allen County, for instance, gets the appropriate amount of tax revenue that it's due. At the city level, the city clerk treasurers in our smaller towns and the city controllers and some of the larger cities share some similar roles as well, and it's really a good framework for how we can look to reform the state government. The city controllers are sort of fulfilling both the duty of the treasurer and the auditor, and I think that's something we can look at as a state government as well. There's a lot of talk about local government reform and how people in Indianapolis think they know how to run local government better than local officials, and I think that some of those ideas that have been floated around sort of lack credibility unless the state is willing to look at itself and how it can do business better. There are dozens of agencies that touch the financial planning process in the state of Indiana, and on top of that you got the auditor and the treasurer and the governor and the legislature all playing a big role as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to consolidate and reform how government is managed at the state level before they try to tell local cities and counties how they can run their business.
Final question, and then I'll give you a chance to anything you want to talk about. Treasurer, state auditor sound pretty similar. What's the differences there?
The state treasurer is primarily the collection side, and the state auditor is primarily the expenditure side. But they do collaborate a lot, and should frankly probably collaborate a little bit more than we have in the past.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll give you a few seconds or minutes if you want to wrap up.
Sure. What we've been saying across the state is that this is an important position that not a lot of folks are necessarily aware of, but can have a huge impact in making government work better for them. And it's also a position that there really isn't a Democrat or Republican way to do it. There's not a whole lot of party politics in play in this position. There is a right and a wrong way to do it. We think the right way is by bringing more technology into the office and being a more active watchdog for taxpayers. And we do think that there's an old and a new way, and looking for ways we can innovate the office and make it work more effectively on behalf of Hoosiers. So we have a lot of opportunities ahead of us, and I hope the voters of Indiana give me a chance to show what we can do, and I'd like to invite them to visit our website, lockeforauditor.com, to learn a little bit more about the campaign and how you might be able to get involved.
Well, Sam, it's been a pleasure talking with you this afternoon. We appreciate your time.
Likewise. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.